let's take this to a deeper look now with the government shutdown over. The big concern is that Democrats will try to do this again at the end of January. And it's exposed the split in that party, and it's growing exponentially. Some Dems now saying it's time to throw out the old and bring in the new. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker with this. It is time for a new generation of leaders to stand up to Trump and to all those complicit in sabotaging the American dream. End of quote. Across Capitol Hill, progressives are also fed up, but not just with their leadership. Here's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. I think what's important is that we understand that this is not just a leader is reflected as a reflection of the party, and Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person.
Well, a dodge from her part, but there are plenty of progressives calling for the removal of Senator Chuck Schumer. Now, maybe she doesn't actually want to say that out loud because she might plan to run against him. And some of those lawmakers willing to do so are all around and on the screen. In focus now, our power panel, Tiffany Smiley, former Senate candidate and Endeavor PAC founder, and Julian Epstein, Democrat strategist. Great to see you both. Julian, I'm going to start with you on the call for the leadership to step down. And they're focused so much on Trump. They do realize that, I mean, a whole new generation for one president?
Well, thanks for having me, Harris. It's not a generational problem. It's a problem of the party being too far left. You know, the far left, Harris, since the French Revolution, has always eaten its own. It's true of the Jacobins in the French Revolution, the Reds in the Russian Revolution, the cultural revolutionaries in Mao. The far left always tries to eat its own. Senator Schumer did exactly what the far left wanted here. The strategy was never going to win. There's no way after winning the House, the White House, the Senate, and the House that the Republicans were going to cede power to the Democrats, especially on something like Obamacare, which has so many flaws. Rather than admitting that the progressives had a bad strategy, what they try to do is purge the moderates who are much closer to the median voter than are the progressives. And this is just part and parcel with the history of the far left doing things that are ultimately just very destructive. You know,
you have consistently been transparent on that. When I've asked even high-profile Democrats, do you think maybe you're not wearing the pants on this one and it's the far left in your party? They never seem to feel outnumbered. What you're saying is they might be, just in terms of how potent these people are.
Because they're scared of the flying monkeys of the online left. That's why.
Flying monkeys. Okay. Democrat Senator John Fetterman, who we know is not afraid to speak up against his own party, wrote this on how he sees both sides of the political aisle. Quote, I've drunk deeply the venom of both the left and the right. And as a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. The right tells me I suck and calls me names. The far left calls for my death. He even listed some shocking examples in a recent interview.
On the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke. Why couldn't a depression won? And I hope your kids find you in your head, cheering at that. Yeah, and they said that, I remember one, they claimed, oh, the doctor let us down, and why did they have to save his life?
Tiffany, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Fetterman has turned into a political hero for both sides of the aisle. And the truth of the matter is that the Democrat Party has become a narrow, single-track party where the only way to be accepted, like Fetterman was talking about, is to be anti-American, anti-capitalist, and anti-worker. And I think what we're seeing is that the Democrat Party is lost, and they've lost the American people. We saw a handful of them vote to end the charade, where they were willing to inflict much harm on the American people for their own political purposes. So I think the Democrat Party is in a full-fledged revolt where they have no idea how to govern or get anything done in Washington, D.C. The truth of the matter is that the majority of Democrats wanted to keep the government shut down. They wanted to inflict pain on millions of Americans, including the most vulnerable, our law enforcement, air traffic controllers, to see them suffer for their own political advantage. So I think we, have to look at it. If the Democrats can't even control the far left radical side of their party, just imagine what they would do if they controlled the House or the Senate going forward.
That's an interesting point. Look, I'm just praying we don't have to go through this all over again at the end of January. I mean, if they've really lost control, then what happens next? Julian, your last quick thought. Maybe you have something to say about that.
I don't think it'll happen. Years ago, the progressives formed their own political parties, the Working Families Party, the Democratic Socialists of America. It's time now for people like John Fetterman to form their own offshoot of the Democratic Party. Call it the Democratic Builders Party. Independents and moderates represent 50%.
But you know how people are and how they vote, though, Julian. I have to push back a bit. You know that they're going to vote party line, and those names, it takes years for that stuff to catch on, cycles for that to catch on.
Because moderates have not gained the leverage that they have in the electorate. Moderates and independents represent probably 50% of the electorate.
They do.
But they have no way of exercising that power. These moderates should now form their own party. They should be an offshoot of the Democratic Party, the way the Democrats did in places like New York with the Working Families Party. They should caucus with the Democrats when appropriate, and they should threaten third-party runs when the party goes too far left, because that's where the voters are. Until that happens, the moderates are not going to have
Democrats, this is just the beginning.
All right. Well, according to Hakeem Jeffries, you're absolutely right. Great to see you both. Thank you so very much. We'll bring you back.
Thanks, Harris.
Government back open for business after the dumbest shutdown in history caused $90 billion in economic damage. President Trump putting the Dems on notice that they'll pay a price.
We will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country. The vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really went out and they could appease the fringe benefits of their far-left base, but that didn't work out because now their far-left base is angrier than ever before.
Dems are still salty about how they got bupkis out of the shutdown. The leathery lioness of politics and Nancy Pelosi raging while battling the wind.
You are the con job. You are the scam. You do not believe in science or responsibility or anything, and it's all about money in the pocket of your friends and billionaires, as we have seen even with health care.
Is the shutdown worth it? Yeah, I think so. I hate it, but yeah, it was worth it.
By shutting the government down, we were able to focus on and get everybody else focused on the unaffordability of health care across this country.
Fighting to lift up the quality of life of everyday Americans will always be worth it.
So, Dana, the shutdown cost $90 billion. The first shutdown under Carter cost $700,000. So it shows you that we're just not really good at these shutdowns. But do you think the Dems are going to pay a price? You're going to have to play these clips when they say the shutdown was worth it, because will people remember this by the midterms?
It's unlikely that they will. However, this deal only goes until the end of January. And if the Democrats feel like it was worth it, you think they wouldn't do it to the American people again? And if you look at those clips about how they say it was worth it, think about if you were one of those people who missed a wedding because your flight was canceled, or you didn't get home in time for Little League, or you had to pay out of pocket for a hotel room because your flight was canceled again and you couldn't get home. I mean, the Democrats are saying that you are expendable, that it was okay, it was worth it, because now we're going to talk about subsidies for Obamacare. Said Obamacare was a disaster at the time in 2012, 2013, or 2012. And I don't really want to hear a Democrat talk about how Obamacare is unaffordable without them explaining why.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the COVID subsidies that ratcheted all of this up, and you're going to shut down the government again because of that. The other thing that is happening for them that might work in their favor in the long run is they're finally having the fight that they needed to have for a long time. Senator Cory Booker is the first senator that has said that Chuck Schumer needs to go. Other Democrats had said that, like Ro Khanna on the congressional side, but no other Democrats on the Senate side had. And now you're seeing that. So there might be a way for the Democrats to shake things up, to try to get some new leadership, some generational changes that might help them in the long run, at least have some new energy in the party.
Well said. You know, Jesse, how convenient was it as the shutdown ended? Out comes the Epstein files. And for like 2 hours last night, it captivated the lemmings in the media. We stand by and we just watch it collapse like Brian Stelter on a wicker chair. It's like, are you at all surprised by the timing of that?
No, obviously they had it, and they only released 3 emails at first.
Yeah.
And the Republicans were like, we're not going to play that game. We just dumped it all. And then you saw the context, and the context was he never did anything. It's a lot of innuendo, and they're going to smear him with that, just like they did with the Russia hoax. You hang this dark, foreboding cloud over the president's head, and then everybody plays guessing games, and all of a sudden you lose the House. It's not going to happen this time, because now and online, we can go and expose the BS instantaneously. Now, the shutdown might have legs, and here's why. We'll always remember Hakeem's sombrero. That will never go away. And anytime he talks, back with the sombrero. Also, the base is now not just angry at Trump. The base is angry at the Democrats. And you're going into a midterm cycle where the base is now directing not all their energy at Trump. They're directing a lot of energy at Democrats. That means they're going to spend money. They're going to primary these people in the House and the Senate. And what happened when the Republican Party did that? They nominated a bunch of crazy people that lost in the general. Remember how we were always supposed to win all these great Senate and House seats, but someone believed they were a witch and they lost? Stuff like that. God. That's what they're going to do. They're going to nominate crazy people, and they're going to believe in 15 genders, and then they're going to die in a general election. And that happens. And they have to go through that process because we went through it.
Christine
O'Donnell?
Yes, good job.
Who I like, by the way.
On the night that she won that primary, I was on Hannity, and they said, "What do you think, Dana?" And I said, "I think we just lost Delaware." And I got so much hate mail.
Yes.
Thank you.
From the Wiccans. You don't want to mess with the witches, I tell you.
No,
They'll put a spell on you. All right. So, Kayleigh, I love when Pelosi goes, she's like trying to find in her head the people to demonize, rich billionaires. She doesn't say centimillionaires. Those are the people that have hundreds of millions of dollars, because she's one of them. So she can only say the evil billionaires. It's so convenient that that's not on her list of villains.
Yeah, she also fails to mention her stock trades. Convenient, yes. Right? She's got all the buzzwords minus that. I'm still in mourning for that poor wicker chair under Brian Stelter, however.
He's got others.
He's got others, 4 chairs. As I look at this, I just think Democrats, this was never about principle. It was about fighting. What principle were they setting? We want health care subsidies. So in doing so, in wanting health care subsidies, let's force TSA workers to sleep in their cars. Let's put tens of dollars in the bank's accounts of federal workers. And, oh, by the way, let's force the military to take out mortgages, to take out loans to pay their mortgages. That's the message. It's a complicated message. It doesn't make sense because this was always about the fight. You go back to March, where Chuck Schumer chose not to shut down the government. The polling at the time in March by a plus 15 margin said Democrats wanted their party to fight the Republican agenda at all costs. Chuck Schumer forewent that fight. You go to today, after the shutdown, and what do you see? 69% of Democrats still say their party's not fighting enough. They want to see a fight. It's why Spartacus, otherwise known as Cory Booker, stood on the Senate floor and had the longest filibuster ever. The base is yelling, fight, fight, fight. They don't care about the federal workers. They care about the fight. But they would be wise to heed the words of former advisor to Harry Reid, who after the first shutdown didn't happen, Chuck Schumer averted it. He said, Schumer is right. Dems are understandably spoiling for a fight, but this was not it. Fight, but pick smart fights. This was not a smart fight to pick.
Harold, Kayleigh makes a great point about the thing about how, like, if your intention is fighting, that's all you're going to get. Like, it's like all we have to, so you actually, there's no way to measure it. You can succeed, but at the end of the day, I hate saying that, it's all you had was a fight. You have nothing to show for it. It's what Scott Adams calls an accidental affirmation. Right. You convince yourself that this is the right outcome when, in fact, you got nothing.
I said all along that if I were in the Senate, I would have voted early on to open the government and then let's have the fight over the ACA. They chose not to. The jury, it may still be out, but we do have an incredible data point about if Democrats were punished because of the shutdown. Voters voted coast to coast and said no. Democrats didn't lose anywhere last Tuesday, and the shutdown was 25, 30 days plus in. Now, we have a long way to go to next year's election, and we'll see what happens. But voters did not punish Democrats then. Two, the health care thing is interesting to me. For the life of me, I can't understand why, even during this process, both Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson and others, they weren't out talking about, here's what we want to do with the ACA. Because I agree that some of the things that have been added to the ACA over the last few years because of COVID should be taken off. You're providing health care to people who are earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We got to figure out in some regions of the country that may make more sense than in other regions of the country. But we shouldn't kid ourselves either. Technology and medical breakthroughs and innovation are causing healthcare costs to go up. People are living longer and they're consuming more things, including medical care. So we as a nation have to step back and as much as, and I'm the first to applaud every cure, every medical innovation, every medical breakthrough, but we have to understand what that does to our overall healthcare system. And you combine that with the challenges we face with people who live in rural America and in parts of urban America who don't have access to some of this healthcare. Finally, if I were President Trump, or if I were Democrats thinking about it, I try to say this all the time, between now and the end of January, Dana touched on one thing, we're going to get some ending to this or some clarity around it, because the government will close again January 30th if they don't come up with a long-term budget. But you have the Supreme Court decision on tariffs that will likely come in the next week or so. You have the Fed that will decide whether they're going to cut rates beginning December 9th and probably December 10th at that meeting they have there. You have the Epstein files, which has been talked about here. I don't have a strong opinion about this, but it's very likely and clear that the only way we're probably going to get into this is some sort of transparency around it. And finally, this ACA vote will take place in December as well. So there's a lot on the agenda. I think President Trump is smart to get out in the country. I think he's not smart to try to tell people that they are able to afford things and that things are not as expensive as they think. I've said before, there are a lot of politicians who try to tell voters crime is not big in your neighborhood. We don't need the borders shut. And guess what? You're doing much better economically than you think. Most of them are sitting at home. And I would say to Democrats and Republicans, get out, listen to voters, and try to figure out and come up with answers. That's how you win.
Hate to tell you, Harold, I did look at a lot of the Epstein file emails, and you were mentioned in them. There was one where Epstein.
Let's be very clear. I never met this man. You were lying.
There's one where Epstein says, I would really like to buy a Ford. I'm thinking of buying a Ford. I think that you're going to have to answer to that.
This one is not funny to me. What this guy did and what that woman is in jail
I know.
for. I have no.
I was just
I know
doing
you
a play on words, Harold. Lighten up, okay?
I love you.
My goodness, I love you too.
So 1.4 million federal workers. We lost $14 billion out of the economy, 1.4 million federal workers going without pay. Besides that, what did the Democrats get out of it? If that was, they knew that was going to happen, and they wanted to do this longer. So, I mean, when you just said Keem Jeffries is going, it's not over.
Yeah, it is over.
It's over.
It's over.
No, it's over.
Literally over. But he's doing that for the progressive base. But my thing is, all these federal workers, their unions by and large, they support the Democrats. And they're still cheering for the government to be shut down. At what point do you pick your family over the party and say, I can't support these guys? If they're going to keep the government shut down just to get back at Trump and say it's causing maximum pain, this is the only leverage that they have, you got to stop supporting these people.
AOC, she said that this is a coordinated effort between the Democrats and the Republicans, the ones who voted with the Republicans. There were 8 in the Senate that voted with Republicans, 6 in the House that voted with Republicans. And no, it's just common sense. We want SNAP benefits to go to the families that need it. We want you to get your paycheck if you work for the federal government. Here's some reactions from AOC and some of the progressive House members.
There's no one vote that ended this shutdown. We are talking about a coordinated effort of 8 senators with the knowledge of Leader Schumer voting to break with the entire Democratic Party in exchange for nothing.
I think we're in an unprecedented moment that, demands that we consider whether or not it's the time for new leadership.
Do you think the Senate Democrats need a new leader?
Yes, I do, but that's not in my hands.
I mean, they're going to have a lot of primaries. I mean, you have with the senator from Massachusetts is going to be challenged. We know that for sure. It looks like Chuck Schumer is going to get a challenge. The whole push from these angry left-wing activists is to start challenging these guys and these women in the primaries that were somewhat moderate, and I think that's why maybe Jeanne Shaheen retired. Gary Peters is retiring. Dick Durbin's getting older, but he was retiring. They know they're going to be challenged for more left-wing, more progressive candidates, which I think is just bad for the country.
It was bad for the country, but I think it's time to finally have this fight of the socialism versus capitalism fight. I think if we really want to just put it in its grave on a national level, we need a strong candidate. Maybe it's J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio being together, or whoever decides to win in that primary. And we need strong Senate candidates to say, this is not America. This is where Seth Moulton, who used to be considered a moderate, all because he wants the Senate seat in Massachusetts, has turned into this radical lunatic now. And I think it's a temporary solution to get to the base, but when you run in the general election, people are going to reject this.
Well, everyone's wondering, what direction does the Democratic Party go? They're divided. Who will be their new leader if Chuck Schumer, if AOC primaries him? Right. Will it be AOC? She was asked on whether or not Chuck Schumer should remain the minority leader. Listen.
Should Chuck Schumer stay as minority leader?
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle. I know I'm being asked about New York. That is years from now. I have to remind my own constituents because they think that this election is this year. We actually do have Senate elections this year, and my hope is that people across this country actually participate in their primary elections in selecting their leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's running. She's running.
I think she will, too.
No comment is running. No comment is saying, okay, I don't want to say just yet, but I'm not saying that I'm not running.
Well, it could be the Kamala Harris thing, where Kamala Harris says, yeah, I'm not going to run for governor after thinking about it because she wants to run for president. Mm-hmm. She might be hedging because she might think that she has the support to run for president. Especially with the Seattle, the radical Seattle mayor winning.
You think she wants the whole enchilada?
Yeah, I think she might see a window. Ever since Chris Christie waited and then missed the window, I think all these politicians are afraid of missing their window. If she sees that window, I think she runs. And I think most likely what's going to happen is it's going to be a midterm election. Chuck Schumer will announce he's not running for re-election. And I think that would open the door for her.
She campaigned with Mom Donnie. Do you think that's a winning message?
She mentored it.
Around the country? I can understand how she could win in New York. I can understand how this socialist is winning at the mayoral race in Seattle.
Right.
But not around the country.
Well, it would be up to people running against her like Shapiro and Bashir and Cory Booker to turn around and go, we don't want a socialist representing our party. You're going to see the intramural fight first. If they decide to have a legitimate primary for the first time since President Obama took on Hillary Clinton.
Do you think there's going to actually be some point in the Democratic Party where they fight and say they reject socialism?
Yeah, well, if you want to win. You remember how hard DeSantis would go at Trump and go at Vivek Ramaswamy? That's what Newsom's going to have to do to AOC before they get to the finals, which would be,
I don't think you can reject socialism and win a primary in the Democratic Party. I think you have to teeter with it with a little bit and say, hey, I want the government to fund this, this, and this. You may not say that you're a Democratic social, but you got to embrace it at some point to win a primary in the new Democratic Party. But we'll see. We'll see what the debate happens.
Fox News alert. California Democrat Congressman Eric Swalwell hit
this afternoon with a federal criminal referral for alleged mortgage and tax fraud. It reportedly related to his $1.2 million home in Washington that he claimed as his primary residence. He didn't waste any time hitting back, writing in a statement, as the most vocal critic of Donald Trump over the last decade and as the only person still has a surviving lawsuit against him. The only thing I'm surprised about is that it took him this long to come after me. I refuse to live in fear in what was once the freest country in the world. We'll keep you updated as that story develops. Swalwell, though, is one of the guys who tried to keep the government closed. Too bad it's open. The Democrats now are losing it on each other. They seem to be imploding. That's a robot falling on its face, but after the shutdown, that's about what's happening with Democrats as well, falling flat on their faces. It's understandable. They're furious over the whole thing. What they thought was a strategy was just bad policy. Even so, a little embarrassing is the way that they reacted on the House floor. They also have lost all faith in their colleagues. Democrat Connecticut Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro telling Politico the Senate says they will have a vote on the subsidies. Do I trust any of them? Hell no. Meantime, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says it's time to challenge Senate Democrats.
This problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. And my hope is that people across this country actually participate in their primary elections in selecting their leadership. Thank you.
Really answer the question.
Her progressive colleagues are a little more on the nose, a little more straightforward.
I think we're in an unprecedented moment that, demands that we consider whether or not it's the time for new leadership.
I think people understand what a betrayal this is tonight.
Do you think the Senate Democrats need a new leader?
Yes, you do, but that's not in my hands.
And it's not just coming from House members.
We need more effective leadership. That also means that the caucus has to decide for itself that we're not going to continue to break apart like this. We all have to hold each other accountable.
It's comical. It's even predictable as we continue to hear about it that if you don't fall in line, you're fair game. On, and by the way, offline.
The Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
The difference is, the right would say really rough things and names. Some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left it was like they want me to die or that we're cheering for your next stroke.
Jeez. I wonder what they're saying on Blue Sky today. News broke today that Fetterman was hospitalized after a fall near his home. Now, a spokesperson is sharing the senator is doing well and receiving routine observation at the hospital, and we here wish him a speedy recovery. But it's not just Democrat lawmakers. What is going on with their staffers? Like this member of Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth's office, appearing to pose as a lawyer in an attempt to free an illegal immigrant from ICE custody. The DHS posting the video on X saying this Duckworth staff member allegedly claimed to be the lawyer of a 40-year-old illegal immigrant who had been deported to Mexico 4 times and had DUI conviction in order to seek his release from custody. He accomplished this by falsifying an official Department of Homeland Security form. We look forward to a response from Senator Duckworth. And then there's former chief of staff to California Governor Gavin Newsom, Dana Williamson, who was arrested by the FBI in a political corruption case. She's facing 23 counts, including bank and wire fraud and conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruction of justice. Williamson left the Newsom administration last year, begging the question, what did he know and when did he know it? According to Politico, Newsom had known for a month that Williamson had been questioned by the FBI. She informed him in November. He immediately placed her on leave, and she officially left the administration in December. So 1 Democratic staffer. Okay, 2 Democratic staffers. Your eyebrows start to raise. 3? Over to New York. A former top aide for Governors Hochul and Cuomo is on trial after being accused of working with the Chinese Communist Party. Is this now the moment for Democrats? As they have to purge their staffs, are they looking to purge themselves? Is it their Tea Party moment? Well, the voters are split between what they want, a progressive populist or a pragmatic vision of the party's future. Is this the Tea Party moment for Democrats?
Well, it is hard to believe what could happen in just the next couple of months. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is finally over. The pain will linger, and the next round of this could be at the end of January. These lawmakers can't let that happen. President Trump signed the House-passed bill last night to get funding back to the programs and agencies Americans are relying on. Now the focus is on repairing the economic damage of those 43 days of food insecurity and air traffic chaos and so much more. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. 6 House Democrats bucked their own political party ranks and joined with Republicans to reopen the government. So we saw this on the Senate side with 8 of them, 6 of them in the House. There is movement. Thank the good Lord. President Trump went after the left, who voted to keep it closed. All of those other people outside of the 6 on the left.
The extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. The total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families.
So I mentioned just a couple of short months from now could potentially be round 2. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries seems like he wants that.
This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We'll fight today. We'll fight tomorrow. We'll fight this week. We'll fight next week. We'll fight this month. We'll fight next month. We'll fight until we win this battle for the American people.
Boy, I don't know. A whole lot is at stake. Let's take a look at what the first round of that Democratic fight looked like. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their SNAP food assistance benefits. They were suffering. More than 5.2 million airline passengers faced flight delays and cancellations. 1.4 million federal workers went weeks without pay. And the White House estimates the economy lost about $15 billion every week of those 6 weeks. A massive hit of $90 billion over the entire shutdown. When you count everything all up, you can count them. 10 zeros. House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain comes up in focus. First, senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Peter.
Harris, as the sun rose and the dust settled here, the top economic officials, advisors to the president, have determined that it could take months for the economy to fully recover from this shutdown because the projection is that the GDP took a significant hit.
Well, our Council of Economic Advisors said that it cost about $15 billion a week, and it accumulates to maybe 1.5% of GDP when you account for multiplier effects. And their current estimate is that 60,000 Americans, not government workers, have lost their jobs because of the reduced economic output.
Washington, D.C. neighbor Governor Wes Moore writes, this is exactly why people hate Washington. Once again, Republicans in D.C. are asking us to accept a false choice, fund the government or protect people's health care. That's not leadership. Marylanders know what's at stake. They've lived the shutdown. They're the federal workers who missed paychecks, the SNAP recipients wondering how to feed their families, the seniors worried about keeping the heat on. But another Democrat is warning this might only be over for a couple weeks.
Well, absolutely. It was always just country over the party. And now people just, it never made any sense to shut it down at that point anyway, because now if the Democrats in the Senate now decides in January, you're going to have the opportunity to shut it back down.
If that does wind up happening, though, we would still expect it to be business as usual here, because we watched during the length of the shutdown, this president traveled the world. He held high-level meetings, even though things were technically closed. Harris.
Peter, thank you very much. Democrats have pretty much nothing to show for what they just put the country through. And after all of the destruction, this new funding deal only runs through January 30th. And as I mentioned, that means we could be right back in the same mess just 11 weeks from now. Congresswoman Lisa McClain of Michigan, chair of the Republican Conference and member of the Financial Services Committee, is in focus. Good to have you today. First of all, those words, those fighting words from Hakeem Jeffries, what do they mean to you? Have you spoken with him?
Yeah, I have not spoken with Hakeem Jeffries, but what those words mean to me are kind of sad. I want to fight, fight, fight. Fight for what? How about if we work together for the American people to do what's right? But whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or their number two, Catherine Clark, or Chuck Schumer, they're not fighting for the American people, Harris. They're fighting for their communist left wing and for their own skin, right? If we truly want to fight, we need to win. We need to do what's right for the American people. And here's this thing. Why can't we do both? As Republicans, I think we can fund the government and there's that special word, and continue to make progress for the American people, whether it's the economy, whether it's bringing down health care premiums, not for the big insurance companies, but bringing down premiums for the American people. See, there's a big difference, but I think we can do both. It's an and, not an or. Harris.
That is a powerful word, especially right now, and literally a house divided. So we'll be watching for that. And how fast do things get moving, though, to make some of that happen?
Well, we never took our foot off the gas during the shutdown. Our appropriations committees and all of our other committees, but especially the appropriations committees, right, we've been working. We've passed 12 appropriation bills out of the House, and 3 got put in the continuing CR. So our plan is, Republicans, is to continue to work for the American people. If the Democrats want to continue to be obstructionists, that's going to be on them. I hope that's not the case. I hope they want to continue to work for the American people. I know Republicans, we want to work on affordability. We want to work on bringing premiums down. But it sure would help to have a partner on the other side. And if the Democrats want to be obstructionists, that's on them, not on Republicans.
Look, House Speaker Mike Johnson is going after Democrats post this vote last night. Let's watch.
They were more afraid of political retribution from the radicals that now run the Democrat Party than they were afraid about taking the food out of the mouths of hungry families, truly, or about having flights canceled around the country, or making the troops and their families worry about where the next paycheck was going to come from. It was a selfish political stunt. It yielded nothing but pain for the American people.
Yeah. A new opinion piece hammers that home. Here's a quote. So why did the Democrats do it? From the beginning of the dispute, everyone seems to have understood that Mr. Schumer forced a shutdown because he needed to show his state's progressive voters that he could take it to Mr. Trump and so avoid a primary challenge from the left. It was all for show, literally. Chairwoman McClain, your response.
Well, unfortunately, I happen to agree with the speaker. What did the Democrats gain out of this? I mean, look at the economic impact, the negative economic impact that it had. Look at all the people that didn't get their SNAP benefits, didn't get their paycheck, air traffic. For what? Listen, Harris, I'm a fighter. But you know what's more important than fighting? Winning. Right? So if you fight, don't you want to get something on the back end? Right? Let's stop fighting. To what end? Right? Because at first the shutdown was, we got to show a fight against Trump. Okay, that didn't work. Okay. Oh, no, it's the Epstein files. Okay, that didn't work. All right, let's make it about health care. The Democrats have no plan, no vision, and no leader. Republicans, let's work for the American people to make things more affordable, to bring health care premiums down for the American people. Let's get this country back on track, which is exactly what we did in the working families tax cut and exactly what President Trump is doing. The Democrats right now just need to stop being obstructionists.
Yeah, and I hear you hitting that word affordability. And it certainly was big here on the East Coast for New Jersey and Virginia and New York with this new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. I mean, that was it. So it sounds like you've got those appropriations bills ready to go. We'll be watching it stem to stern. I hope you'll come back and update us.
We will.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Democrats have only themselves to blame. That's the message from people like Chris Matthews, who says there's one big reason that Democrats are losing out with working class voters.
How does the Democratic Party, which is trying to talk to working class people again, but are all, highly educated and they live in urban places, how do they bridge that divide?
The people that didn't get to college are voting for Trump. Why? Because of snobbery and attitude, as we say in Philly.
What do you think?
Attitude.
All right, let's bring in Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor. So it would seem that the guy who once had a tingle up his leg now has an icy shudder when thinking about the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and here's how bad the numbers are. If you were just a high school graduate, no college degree, in 2020, Donald Trump won that group by 5 points. 4 years later, he won that group by 20 points. A massive swing among people with high school degrees for Donald Trump. The Democrats pushed them away. Donald Trump welcomed them in. Republicans welcomed them in. But the Democrat elitism, their postgraduate thinking, their views about the border, let people come in illegally, raise your hand, decriminalize people crossing the border, their views about women competing against men in sports, those were the animating issues of the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris years for the progressive left. They made more noise about those issues than they did about bread and butter, working class issues. Democrats pushed them away. Trump brought them in. The two parties are switching bases.
Yeah, you mentioned how the voters broke in 2024. We actually have some great statistics from our Fox News voter analysis. If you had high school or less as your education, 59% voted for Donald Trump. Some college, he held on to the lead with 53%, but then it seems that the more educated you are, the more elite you become, the more you go over to the Democratic column.
For all my history in politics, decades, Democrats always won postgraduates. Republicans always won college graduates. So if you had a PhD, you were a Democrat. College graduate, you were a Republican. Working class people, they were Democrats. That's what switched, John. Now the Democrats are the party of the college educated, and of course they've kept the postgraduates. Republicans are the party now of the blue-collar working class voter. That's where the two bases, interestingly, have switched. The one group that Kamala Harris did better than Joe Biden in 2024 compared to 20 was rich people.
Yeah.
People who made more than $100,000 a year. It went up for Kamala Harris. Every other demographic group, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, young voters, union voters, all went up for Trump. The only group that did better for her were rich voters.
Yeah.
That's where politics is today.
Now we talk about this populist split in the Democratic Party with people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others coming out to try to take on a mantle of leadership. Listen to what Charlemagne the God said about Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett is actually what the Democrats should be leaning into. She got you by just saying, Donald Trump is racist and this administration is racist and let me tell you why. And then you get into all of the issues. I'm like, you need somebody like Jasmine Crockett. She is the most effective messenger that the Democratic Party has right now. And they need to be using her as a Trojan horse.
You talk to Republicans, they say, oh, please let Jasmine Crockett run for the Senate in Texas, thinking that they're going to bury her. But Charlemagne could be onto something about this Trojan horse idea.
Well, she's the right voice for the angry Democrat, liberal, progressive, woke base, the socialists rising inside the Democrat Party, because she's just full of venom toward Donald Trump. That is a winning message for that sliver of the Democratic Party. It's a losing message for anybody running statewide in Texas. And that's why Charlemagne can say that, but let her run and she'll flop. What does scare me, John, though, is the Democrat candidates who are winning from the left, candidates like the Virginia Attorney General who threatened to kill the Speaker of the House, his opponent, somebody he opposed. Maine, you have a Democratic candidate who's got a Nazi tattoo on him. He says he's a communist. He may win his primary in Maine. There's a reward for radicalism among the Democrat far left these days, and we all need to keep an eye on it.
All right, we will. And I think that sliver that you talk about could soon become a 4x8 piece of plywood in terms of the appeal of the far left. Ari, great to see you. Thank you, my friend.
The socialist fever in the Democratic Party seems to be spreading after Zohran Mamdani's win in New York City. Over in Seattle, they have just elected a socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, an inexperienced far-left radical who got financial support from her parents. She's on track to take down the incumbent Democratic mayor who has worked in city politics for almost 2 decades. AOC, meanwhile, is trying to get Trump voters in on the communist revolution.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, and I watched Fox News every day, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information. And now I've learned, and now I've changed, and I'm with you, and I learn from you.
But will Trump voters really feel at home in the current Democratic Party? Former MSNBC host Chris Matthews notes how they turned into a party of snobs.
Democrats were an urban and a rural
now.
party.
They're still that.
Are they a rural party?
The people that didn't get to college are voting for Trump. Why? Because of snobbery and attitude.
Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman, who earlier today got rushed to the hospital after a fall near his home in Pennsylvania, and thankfully he's doing okay. But before that scary incident I mentioned, he was talking about the level of hatred he gets on social media from members of his own party.
The right would say really rough things and names. You know, some names I won't repeat on TV. But the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won? And I hope your kids find you. I mean, they even have like the graphic, a GIF where they have like a stroke, in your head.
So, Greg, there's a slew of secret socialists whispering in AOC's ear.
Yeah, I love, she says, I can't tell you how many times Trump supporters have come up to me and said, yes on Democrat socialism, and I can learn from you. Well, I can tell you how many. 0. Didn't happen. She made it up. Because one thing you know about Trump supporters, they're pretty solid on their beliefs about socialism. They make it pretty clear. That's like a dog saying, I can't believe how many times a fire hydrant has come up to me and said, hey, I really like getting peed on. Because that's what socialists look at America as a petri dish. We're the lab rats in their experiment. AOC is saying, lab rats, come join us. Embrace your tormentors. All socialists begin by saying they're Democrat socialists. And then when that fails, they drop the adjective. They go full authoritarian. Look at Venezuela. The leader, I can't remember, was it the ugly guy or the other guy? He pushed socialism for the 21st century. That was the slogan. Then he quickly shifted into authoritarianism he took control of the military, took control of the courts, took control of the elections, concentrated power. That's what happens. There's no such thing as Democrat socialism. It's just socialism. There's a class system here. It's the people who make decisions and the rest of us. Trump's role in that bifurcation, he's the agent on behalf of the rest of us. He's our a-hole lawyer that protects us from the elites. AOC pretends that it's the same role that they provide, that you could just simply switch lawyers. Come over to our side. She is actually arguing on the power structure that made our lives hell. Think about everything that she's done. She was for defunding the police, higher taxes, more regulation. She chased Amazon out of New York. She's pro-sanctuary and trans, cashless bail. None of these things any Trump supporter would ever go for, so she's making this whole thing up. As for Fetterman, he touched on the hierarchy of smears. And I said it before, you can call me Hitler, means that I can call you fat. Because in the hierarchy of smears, you left a whole lot of turf under Hitler. We will insult you till the cows come home. Shout out to The View. But we don't wish you're dead. We don't wish you're dead, but it's great because the personal smears hurt more because I can look in the mirror and go, I know I'm not Hitler. But when they look in the mirror, they go, yeah, they're right, I'm fat.
You're not fat, Greg.
No, I was talking about Haley, you pilgrim.
Whoops. I do look like a pilgrim today. Sorry about that. Should have saved it for Thanksgiving. Dana, there's this mixed message where we're told there's no socialist takeover, and yet in Seattle you have a socialist winning. In New York City, you have the whispering socialist, AOC.
Yeah, so I've been pretty interested in all of this for a while because when Zohran Mamdani was on the upswing, I looked around and I said, guys, it's coming to a city near you. And we looked, yes, in Minnesota, he tried but failed. But in Seattle, I was interested in this race because the other guy that was running is a diverse guy who grew up with nothing, worked very hard, worked his way up. And she, again, borrowed money from her parents to do all of this. She and her husband choose to live in a 600 square foot studio apartment with a toddler. And she says, you too can live like me. Right. And now, but the other Democratic choice, and it's not that the guy who worked really hard and worked his way up was a Republican. He's not. He's a Democrat. And he's sitting there looking around going, wait, what? Wasn't I like the poster child for what we were going to be? The DSA has been quietly and systematically working to build their troops. And bad policy will beat no policy every time. They're super smart about it. They know how to organize. They have classes where you can learn how to speak better. They are teaching people how to go and be persuasive. Now, in a lot of ways, to me, it's like the counter to Turning Point USA. And thankfully, Turning Point USA is growing so much. And their mission is assured because of Erica Kirk's stewardship there. And they're going to need them because Peter Thiel, who's an amazing entrepreneur and somebody, a technologist, he also says that it's understandable why younger people today are pulled in this direction because they feel that capitalism is not working for them. So if they're only getting that message and not hearing from anybody else, then that is going to win every single time. And that young white woman, the awful, she is going to end up probably beating the guy who worked his way up through the Democratic Party. And he's now the establishment, and they don't want the establishment. Even if he checks all of the boxes, if he is not socialist, they don't want him.
I think that's a fascinating way. I'd not thought about that. The DSA as the other side of the coin to Turning Point. I think that's spot on. It's terrifying, Jesse.
I'm not terrified. The socialists don't scare me. If you have a mayor who's out of control and she's a socialist and she runs one of these big cities, the president has to do his job and the governor has to do his job. You're basically babysitting a bunch of children. If they're not going to keep the streets safe, if they're not going to build new housing, you just got to Bigfoot them and come in. Now, the AOC thing. It's funny that she said that because the other day some black lesbian came up to me and she said, I've had it. I'm ultra MAGA. It happens to me all the time. You'd be surprised. I actually know people that went the other way. They were pretty famous. I think his name was Bobby Kennedy. I think Tulsi. I think Musk. I think Rogan. And everybody forgets my good friend Jeff Van Drew. These are people who did leave the Democrat Party and came to be ultra MAGA. And that's fine. You swing back, and people do swing. And that's why, Greg, don't look at me like that. But that's why this administration has to go blank to the wall before the midterms, or else they're going to get whacked on costs. The snob factor. What's changed is 20 years ago, you'd probably do your best to hide your snobbery. Today, you broadcast it. You just casually drop in conversation that, Dartmouth keeps hitting me up for donations. Like, when will they stop? Or like my Guatemalan housekeeper, she left for like 2 weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do. And what this does, it's so alienating and it's so off-putting that you feel like you're living in another country. And at a certain point, a lot of the middle and working class, they do feel like they're living in another country. And that's why you have people that like, what's a pronoun? I remember on this show last year, I didn't know what a trans was. I still don't understand what that means. And I don't care how many times Harold tries to explain it.
I've never tried to explain
it. Greg is right. You hear us talk about Biden. He's sleepy, he's slow, he's corrupt, he's incompetent. But we don't want him dead. But the way they talk about Trump, this guy's a Nazi, needs to die in prison. what they said about Charlie, what they said about Fetterman. And I wrote a book about this. I don't know if you guys remember. It's called Get It Together, still available where books are sold. It's about your deep-seated insecurities. He's gotten me to read the Bible. I'm reading about sin. And this is all based in envy. Now, it's the one sin that doesn't feel good.
Wow.
And that's what they all have. They're envious.
What about the one of murdering someone?
Harold, that's a good legacy to leave, getting Jesse to read the Bible.
Two most important commandments are love the Lord and love your neighbor as yourself. We'll get to that part later.
I'm going to write that down.
First off, I'm glad that she's doing what she's doing, Kayleigh. Whether you think she's going to be successful or not is a different thing. We've talked around this table numerous times about Democrats who are so monolithic, who are so homogenous in how they go about their work. She at least is saying we're trying to reach out and bring people over. I don't think it's as far-fetched, though, as we think. You think about 10 years ago, what the makeup, the 2 or 3 election cycles ago for Democrats, what the makeup of the Democratic electorate was. It was mainly people who had not graduated from college, people who would not consider themselves elite. Today, it's flipped. Democrats are elitists and far more educated. And I agree with just about everything Jesse said in terms of how we look at how people are looked at. I think Dan and I talked about Seattle wrongly the other night, the last few days. I thought that the moderate guy was going to win. Look at the race more closely. He's likely going to lose, and it's likely some generational issues there as well with this younger person beating this older person. What I do know for a fact is that the best poll in politics are elections, and we had a poll just a few weeks ago. Democrats, we can talk about affordability, we can talk about cost, but we have to come up with answers and ideas. Nothing is permanent, nothing is inevitable in politics. It's all earned. In fact, good politicians, if they deliver, they get reelected. Their ideas are celebrated, and their ideas eventually are the ones that most Americans, as we think about politics, go forward with. So I think it's refreshing to hear. I sometimes disagree with the Congresswoman from Queens, but I like this approach. I'm not convinced around the table that she's having that MAGA supporters are flooding her mailbox and her email and coming up to her on the street as much as she said. But I got to tell you this, the only way Democrats we're going to win nationally, and for that matter, even in big parts around the country, is we're going to have to convince voters that we have not only a better message, but a better plan to make their lives better. So I appreciate her doing what she's doing.
Well, on the note of the Congresswoman from Queens, AOC, do you remember the last time you guys flipped a Senate seat? It's 2022, John Fetterman.
Okay,
I'd be listening to Fetterman over AOC.
Right, but I'm saying, I listened to both of them, Kayleigh, but what she said there was that she's wanting people to come over. We've been critical of Democrats. I think there was somebody we talked about a few weeks ago said, I'm only going to speak to Democrats. We don't need, I think it might have been the former Congresswoman from California, Ms. Porter. Maybe it was her. I know it was someone, and we were critical of her. This Congresswoman at least is saying, we've got to bring people to our side. She's got to get better ideas, but she at least is yearning to bring new people to the party, which I think is smart.
Hope the party listens to Ms. Porter and not John Fetterman, but we will see.
Government is open.
That's right.
Okay, longest shutdown in history. Can you tell me what the point of all that was?
I wish that I knew, Sean, because here's what the Democrats actually accomplished. They caused a lot of stress for our troops. They made our air traffic controllers not get paid. They caused a lot of flight cancellations. They had a lot of people thinking they weren't going to get their food benefits. All for literally nothing, Sean, because we could have struck this exact deal 45 days ago. In fact, we met with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and said, we will pass this exact deal. They said no. They put the American people through a ton of pain and suffering for nothing. And we knew this was going to happen, Sean. We knew the President of the United States said every single day, eventually, the Democrats are going to realize this is an absurd position. We've got to reopen the government. And that's what they did.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.